Hello. Yeah, I'm Cadarev. I will be running the bad reboot Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider. But with me, I have almost the entire Tomb Raider community that's at this event. Sadly, we're missing out on Cuddy, but I have Catalyst, very experienced Tomb Raider runner.
Hello, I have played the prequel to this, so I'm more than qualified to be here.
Yeah, he's played the good game. And speaking of, it's Robbie.
I'm a good guy. I've also played 2013.
And since they're the smart people, they left it at that, but I'm not smart, so I also play this game. Yeah, so timer will start after the first cutscene that I can skip. We're playing on normal because easy has auto-aim, and we're not that bad, but we're also not good enough to play on higher difficulties. So 3, 2, 1, go. I think. Yeah, so this game starts with a 45-second holding W exercise, but then it picks up rather quickly. So one common theme for the reboot Tomb Raiders is that in every single run there is like an intro skip we do, and the one in this game is actually super similar to the one in the first game, like, well, 2013, in that we will hit a checkpoint and we'll quit out to main menu and reload the checkpoint from the main menu, and during the loading screen we have to hit a somewhat precise timing to input a roll, and that should allow us to airwalk for a brief moment. Let's see how that will work. So that's this. Interestingly, the loading times are not very consistent, so this first one will probably be just here so I know how long the loading times are. Never mind, I just got it. Thank you. So that's just enough distance to bring us on top of this rock here, and then I actually want to get on top of this one. The main issue with this part is we don't have any weapons, so we can't quickly turn around. Usually you quickly turn around by aiming, but we don't have anything to aim with. And what you can also see is I'm using, or well, you can't see it too clearly, but I'm using the climbing axes that Lara has. I meant to land on the top here. And here we want to jump in a somewhat precise spot to hit the next loading trigger. Very nice. Yeah, so this skips the, like most of the tutorial, where we would slowly walk behind Jonah and progressively learn more about like core mechanics of like platforming and climbing, but I think we're doing fine on the climbing part.
Yeah, I think you got the platforming down.
Sorry?
I think you got the platforming down.
The main issue is if I mess up at any point, we go back all the way to the start, and I kind of want to avoid that, but these jumps are a bit scary, and even though this is the final part, we can still get screwed, but we didn't. Okay. So the game might crash. Okay, the game will never crash here, never mind. And that's the tutorial skip done. So this made a lot of sense. Since we completely glitched out the start of the game, also Lara from now on, even later on, will have the hoodie on, despite her not being supposed to, so get used to that. You also noticed probably the game is using German audio. That's actually intended because it's the fastest for some reason. So some of the conversations we have to wait out. And for whatever reason, even though this is not very common, German turns out to be the fastest. But text audio is completely irrelevant, so I put it to something most of us can do. I can't.
Can I read a few donations? Of course. Thanks. We have $10 from Shuski and FU with no comment. Thank you very much. We also have $5 from Zonaris. And he says, "Hey friends, hacking sad I can't be there, but I hacking love you all anyway." We love you too, Zonaris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zonaris. Yeah, he's at fault for me being the only person in the Swiss delegation at this event. Usually he's my travel companion. That's so deep. Yeah, we're just making our way down to the tutorial, and as you can tell, it's also a pretty big theme in the reboot Tomb Raiders. Wherever Lara is, everything just crumbles, usually with her also taking some of the damage. Here you're supposed to grab the ledge, but it's actually faster to not do that and slide off the ledge and then just immediately use your grappling axe on the wall on the left, so you don't have to shimmy around. And that's the tutorial done. And following the tutorial, usually there is some stuff that I will not do in this run, I think.
Yeah, so to keep this run a little bit more concise, we decided to skip one of the more sort of cutscene or also auto-scrolly section of the game. So Caddy's just gonna go ahead and skip it completely.
Yeah, so that's the reason why the category name you can see on screen is something very serious, and this is totally a legit and competitive category, Siberia only.
Can I do these kinds of skips in my runs as well?
You're more than welcome to. But yeah, this is actually completely preserves the continuity of this run, so this is actually for your viewing experience and pleasure. So yeah, after the first few minutes in the tutorial, we would have a flashback sequence in taking place in Syria. That's like 10 minutes of mostly holding W, and there is like 1 or 2 cool skips, but basically during submissions we were told to maybe not submit too long of a run, and I thought that the 10 minutes I would usually add on top is too much, so I cut it down to a 1-hour estimate, and for that sacrifices had to be made. And I chose the most obvious part.
Okay.
Yeah, but the rest of the game, everything plays in Syria, so actually you probably know better what happened in the first game than I do at this point, from all the commentary you had to do.
Something about Jonah being cringe.
Yes, I mean that's not just in the first game. Yeah, so the reboot Tomb Raiders, as you might expect, is a complete reboot of the franchise. In the first game, Lara's like a novice archaeologist, and she's traveling to a remote Japanese island, and she gets shipwrecked, and the rest of her crew as well, and she has to escape the island that's inhabited by some ancient sun goddess. And in this game she suffers from PTSD and looks through her father's studies and finds some mention of things happening in Siberia with religious people, and in the end she's looking for the divine source, which is said to give its holder immortality. More about this later maybe. So we're at the first campfire, which allows us to upgrade weapons and skills. An interesting thing about this game is, until the first campfire, there are some random XP gains you might or might not get, and I didn't get them, so I had to stand up from the campfire, which gives me even more XP, and that allowed me to actually gain my first skill point, which now allows me to do this, and Rob is probably shuddering next to me. So this is I can now roll after a jump. This is the fastest way of movement in most cases. Like that was actually a case where it wasn't. That's why I did a normal roll, because our jumps were slowed down during the scripted event. But yeah, here we can get this skill with our first skill point in the first Tomb Raider.
Without spending any money?
And any money. In the first Tomb Raider it costs 7 skill points, so in the N% run we never get it. Except if you want to spend $3 to get the DLC that allows you to get that skill from the very first second. So, very good DLC strategy.
Can I read one more quick donation?
Of course, just fight, that's fine.
Yeah, so we have another $5 from Danza. He says, "Go Caddy!"
Actually also started running this game recently. Pretty weird category. Hard, 100% glitchless, and most of those terms. But yeah, a very good friend of mine in the Tomb Runner community. Yeah, so we had an encounter there with a bear. In glitchless, or well, also in your casual playthrough, you're supposed to now, next up, find materials to craft poison arrows and go back, kill that bear, and then through the tunnel system make your way further up ahead. We will not do that because we don't want to be cruel to animals, I guess. Here you're supposed to collect these berries because they're part of the ingredients you need to heal yourself. You need 1 berry and 1 piece of cloth. But interestingly, if you just ignore the berries and go to this crate, which always contains a piece of cloth, you also automatically get a berry, as you can see in the right hand side now. Yeah, there. You always get that one, so you can completely ignore the berries and still heal yourself, which is the trigger for the next part of the event to happen here. And here we'll checkpoint reload, which is a somewhat common theme in the reboot Tomb Raiders, just to like go back to the checkpoint because this is closer to where I want to go. And now we don't go back to the bear. We want to clip up this rock behind me, like that. I think this is also something most Tomb Runner reboot runners that makes sense are familiar with. So, Robbie, do you want to explain how we clip up stuff?
Yeah, basically when you aim with a weapon, the collision of Lara, like behind her, gets weird, and you can, yeah, sometimes just to walk backwards onto a wall, it skills you up. Usually with the weapon swapping, it's even more effective.
Yeah, weapons in this game or in these runs are not usually used primarily for fights, but just as magic wands to clip and up and through stuff. I will actually clip through stuff pretty soon as well, but not using any weapons yet. Because as it turns out, our jump rolling thing is also very effective at clipping. Also, this is out of bounds, which we just reached by not jumping inbounds. But now we're back inbounds and we'll get our second weapon, which is a pistol. And that pistol we will use to gain access to the next area, and then we will not open the door, but hopefully clip through it. I said we hopefully clip through it. Yes, exactly.
Nice.
And almost get shot. Okay. Yeah, so the forward roll has some interesting clipping capabilities like this. It kind of depends on the thickness of the wall you're clipping through, like how smoothly it goes or how easy it is. Here's another checkpoint reload as soon as we drop down from this ledge. And now we basically make our way to the Gulag. In story you would get captured and thrown there, but we want to go there anyways because that's where the story progresses. Also that fence you can clip through by getting the vault animation for the crate behind it. And yeah, here we just want to go to the Gulag because that's where the game progresses, so that makes sense. Here we are again obviously out of bounds. You saw me jump over that generator thingy. And the collision here, as you might expect, is very scuffed. And falling into the water can cost you a lot of time because getting out of the water is the difficult part, but luckily we managed to avoid dropping down there. And here's a thing you can do with your melee attack. It has some very nice scaling capabilities. So if you have these slopes you would usually slide down from, usually with your two-part melee attack you can still scale it quite well, and in this case it was enough. And here's a clip with a weapon. Here should be a clip with a weapon. I said here should be a clip with a weapon. Yes, exactly. So yeah, that you can do pretty similarly to how we clipped up the slope earlier behind us. You also take out your weapon, but you basically scramble backwards. And if you turn your camera correctly, then you can clip through whatever is behind you. And this is where you get captured. And since you get captured, you lose all of your weapons. And that's not cool. So that's where there is another somewhat slow part of this run.
Was wissen Sie über die?
So in the next room, there is at least a bow that you can get. And
Wie ich das sehe, sind die alles andere als heilig.
that's pretty much all you're supposed to get here. Then you would be, or you're supposed to follow Jacob, who's this guy back there in the cell you might see.
Noch ein Grund mehr, hier rauszukommen.
However, the community found a somewhat acceptable solution to that dilemma, because you would have to follow him for 2 minutes while he's talking about lore stuff. So we can clip to the top of this building with just a bow. It's a very finicky clip, so this might take a while. I don't know. But the issue would be that we still wouldn't have a gun. No, easy. Okay, good.
Nice. You can clap for that, guys. Come on.
Thank you.
Caddy made it look way easier than it actually
Yeah, like
is.
this is easily the first like big run killer in a tent. Totally not RNG. Here I pick up wood and feathers. These are crafting materials for arrows, since we didn't get any. Here I want to clip through a 2-layered gate behind me. I can't even get through the first layer because I'm in the wrong spot. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so we only have the bow, we don't have a gun. We need a gun to finish the run. And our gun, two very similar words. Our gun is still in like the Gulag. We're back, and we obviously don't want to go back there. However, it turns out if you have DLC guns, those are those are always accessible at campfires. And so there is like one particular DLC you're allowed to have active, because it allows you to both do this skip, which skips a lot of like slow walking / waiting, but still allows you also to finish your run by equipping that gun from the next campfire we're at, which will take a bit of a while. While we make our way out of the Gulag now. You can see some more clipping here. Yes. And previously when I picked up wood, it was only like one piece of wood. I need, for an arrow you need 2 pieces of wood and 1 feather. So that's why I need to pick up another pile here. So this can be again 1 or 2 pieces. It's again 1 piece, which actually is fine in this case. So each pickup can either be 1 or 2 wood. Ideally you would obviously get 2 wood from the first pickup, then you wouldn't have to pick up the second one. But if you only get 1 on the first one, you actually want, again, only get 1 from the second pickup, because there will be a crate we will loot later on in the run. Since we have time to spare, we will just loot that crate. And it tends to give you more material of the stuff that you don't have. So by us spending the 2 wood we gain now, we'll have 0 wood, and it will preferably give us more wood then. But if we had 3 wood now, we would only use 2 for the crafting, and we would have 1 wood left, so it can also give you stuff that is not wood, which we don't want. Yeah, here is some diving, which is actually a thing they added in this game. You couldn't dive in the first game, despite it being set on an island, so that checks out.
There's a lot of cool death animations though, like jumping in the water.
There's also a lot of cool death animations in this game when you jump in the water, so you can't dive everywhere. But you can dive through, like, apparently pretty cold water without too many repercussions. Just shake it off. Also there's some ominous sound in the background. I guess the source will reveal itself soon. Yeah, so this is another escape sequence where everything around us falls apart. Pretty static stuff. So you see me not always jump rolling here, even though technically I could, but like the space, like obviously once you jump roll, you like are kind of committed to doing the entire roll. So the space here is so restricted that usually it's pretty much possible to also like just fall down instead of having the benefit of doing jump rolling. So for the like small platforms, it's just normal running, which is also a thing they added in this game. So sprinting is like a somewhat good alternative to jump rolling if you don't have the space or you want to not risk it, but it's not as fast as jump rolling in most cases. Yeah, so Lara drowned, I guess, and now has a flashback, and then she's not drowning anymore. She's saved by Jacob, so the guy behind us in the cell in the Gulag also made his way out here and saved us. And so he turns out to be like the prophet of an ancient religious people who now are all, or well, their descendants are now all gathered here in Siberia, and they're in constant fight with Trinity, with the order of bad guys we are also always fighting. So that's like we fight in the first game, in the second and in the third game, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is more of a movie than a game, but I'm not going to talk about that game. We're now making our way to the only Skywalk in this game.
Ooh.
And Skywalks are great because they're everywhere in the first game, but then this game happened, and in this game they're not cool. So here comes the Skywalk, hopefully. can explain Skywalk if you want to.
Yeah, so what's happening is when you slide down or jump down a rock like this, you get this sliding animation. And then when you pivot Lara, you get a negative slide. Like the force down is mirrored, so you basically stuck in place, and then you can go up by using the camera and movement techniques. It's really fun to play around with in 2013.
And only in 2013. So yeah, here we equip the Moon Shadow, which is the DLC pistol. And the Skywalk I did not only skipped like quite a huge chunk of the story progression, but it also allowed us to gain early access to Broadhead arrows, which are a type of arrows that allow you to shoot them inside like rocky walls and then stand on top of them, so kind of like creating your own little platforms you can jump off of. And this skip allows us to gain access to the mines early. As you might be able to somewhat tell here, this is not quite the intended area we're supposed to be. And now we need to hit the loading trigger for the next area while staying out of bounds, which is a bit tricky, but if this pop-up shows up, then you know you got it. Now I just want to stay to the right of this tunnel out of bounds until I can't anymore, which is somewhat soon. But as you can tell, like, vision is somewhat obstructed, so, but this should be fine. Yeah, as soon as you hear like the whatever machine this is, drill, you know you're good. And the mines are collapsing, which makes a lot of sense. Like, none of this makes sense. You just enter the mines and now they're collapsing. I guess Lara.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Never mind.
In these games.
Yeah, so that's the first part of the mines, but that's actually the less scary part. And by scary I mean just like the second part has more tricks / glitches in a row. So here you're supposed to take out these 3 guys, but what we can do is instead of somewhat well-timed jump off this box, if I could get it. So this requires you to first scramble forwards and then jump at the correct time, so you can kind of jump in midair, which gives you just enough range to reach this ledge, which allows you to get the knife, which you need later on. And this allows us to go into a melee slide, which I will explain later on. As you can see, it also gives us kind of a midair jump. And he spotted me, but it might still be fine as long as he doesn't shoot me off the ledge. And I get the checkpoint here. Okay, good. Yeah, he's not supposed to notice you that early, but kind of locked out there. Yeah, so a melee slide is when you melee attack, and then for 1 frame towards the end of the animation, you go into first person, well, not first person, but into aiming mode with your weapons. Which is why we have aiming bound to one of the mouse wheel directions, so we can like just aim for 1 tick. And that locks you in this weird sliding state. And out of that you can midair jump. And here we hopefully can clip up like that.
So it's frame perfect, you're saying?
Of course.
Nice.
Everything I do is frame perfect when it works. Actually, I will do another melee slide here, but I will first get the checkpoint here. Because if I don't get this melee slide, or if I don't get the midair jump as I wanted to, then I would go back to first melee slide, and I don't want that. But of course, that was completely unnecessary. Here I actually also quit out to main menu. I could just reload checkpoint, but then sometimes that minecart or whatever it is has like reverse gravity. So you push it down the slope, but it goes back up the slope. But by going to main menu and reloading from there, that doesn't happen. And we need this so we can then use our rope arrows to pull that bucket that's suspended there towards us. I should have counted how many steps I'm taking, but Lara, can you let me know? Okay, as long as she says this should work, it should work. I hope.
Makes sense.
Yes. Usually I count 8 steps there, but usually I'm also not talking about this bucket. Yeah, now we just try to fill it with water so the crane collapses and gives us a platform to reach the other side. Makes sense. And this is the crate I was talking about earlier, so now it gave us 2 wood since we were at... Okay, so it didn't work. Great. And it even said did it, so good. Nice debate. But I also don't know if it's too far or not far enough, so let's try that again. Okay. Yeah, so usually when she says that did it, the cutscene would play. But obviously it didn't.
She said it in German, so it didn't trigger the cutscene.
Okay. This looks like it should work. Yes, thank you. Okay. So now this is a very short escape sequence here. With some selective jump rolls. And obviously also this is not quite the intended way, so you are first supposed to tear open this door. You can still see the other wire being attached, but we didn't do that, so now she just jumps through the gate. And the rocks collapse into the gate. Which takes care of the mines. Now we're approaching the Geothermal Valley, which is kind of the gathering hub of these, the Remnant? Maybe Remnant? I don't remember what they're called. Like the good guys, basically. Yes, if I could not scramble into a wall. This is a pretty scuffed clip here. You basically line it up and then hope it works. Yeah, then it doesn't.
Isn't that most clips?
Exactly, but this one is like layered, so you have to... What is happening? Like black screen is actually not bad in that case, because usually it means you clip through, but usually also still see the radicals. That's fine. This is how Rise of the Tomb Raider attempts usually end. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, like any kind of, in most games, in any kind of collision clipping like this, in a 3D environment, it's always going to be fairly inconsistent, simply because it's very difficult to position yourself precisely. Yeah, but it worked this time at least.
Yeah, obviously during attempts you want it to be done as quickly as possible, so you also don't want to waste too much time on setups that might work, but I'm still convinced that any kind of setup there is placebo. So just hope for the best. Sometimes it works. Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting skip. I hope Kata doesn't have flashbacks to Sense Gate skip in Dark Souls, because it's actually pretty similar. We are skipping a barrier here that would prevent us from progressing, but it's not loaded right now, so we're actually like pretty much jumping past it right now, and this is a bonfire, I mean campfire, that we sit down at to load the rest of the area, and now we can reload checkpoint and bypass that area. And
Well, your GPS worked at least. Managed to find it.
no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, now we're basically at the point we're supposed to be after the Flooded Archives level, so we kind of have to backtrack and go into the Flooded Archives from the back entrance. Similar to how we had to gain access to this venue today from the back access, because it's close to the public. So yeah, this is where we're supposed to get out. Now we first have to make our way back inside the main puzzle room of this area. For this, you would escape from that area by doing a pretty long swim, or rather dive, which we can't do because we don't have a rebreather, which would allow us to breathe for long enough. So what we'll do instead is clip out of bounds here, which means we don't have to dive at all. We can just swim, which obviously you don't need any like equipment for. And yes, so now this entire body of water here we would have to traverse, and it's like somewhat of a timed event and stuff, but we don't do that now.
So are we in water right now, or is this like just leftover animation and you're flying through the skies? Don't know. Doesn't matter, it
I
works.
don't think I played this far casually. So I have
Fair.
no clue what's happening in this part. So yeah, this was the Broadhead arrow we picked up earlier. Thanks to that we can actually complete this backtrack. If we hadn't skipped ahead to collect those, this would have been a bit more difficult. And now we're just making our way into that main room. There will be a big statue in the middle that we need to collapse for reasons that I don't know of, because I didn't play this far casually. And yeah, we just need to clip through this. This is a bit of a weird clip, because it's actually like the rotation you do is like is supposed to, yeah. Usually you turn the other way around for like every other clip, but for that one you turn around the other way. Like for this one you also turn to the left. Okay. But that small grate there, you just...
Also, generally, for most people, it's easier to aim towards their body. So if they're using the mouse with the right hand, that means aiming to the left. And doing it on the other side, you lose quite a bit of precision as well, usually.
And this is like the main gimmick of this puzzle. You need these explosive barrels that you can pull around with your rope arrows, and we need to destroy 3 of these pillar thingies that hold up the statue. I didn't explode or made the first barrel explode yet. It still needs to swim into position, and while it's doing that I can already go to the other 2. So I need 2 barrels from here that I will then attach to these contraption here. I'm not sure if I'm even doing it the correct way around, but we'll see. I think it's correct. And it actually lined up pretty nicely, so now the one behind should push the one in front down, yeah. So you have this weird pendulum. I kind of wanted to grab that ledge so I could get to the other barrel more quickly, but now it will swing around for a bit, which is annoying, so I need to wait out until it comes back. But yeah, now with the knife, which we obtained earlier, we can cut off the rope, shoot the first barrel from earlier, and now push the other barrel into the water so it floats over while this cutscene is playing.
Jetzt nur noch die restlichen Stufen beseitigen.
Get some more ammo here while the cutscene is playing of the second pillar being destroyed. And now we make our way to the campfire, where we will first shoot the 3rd barrel, which will then make the statue collapse. And then we will, at the same time, interact with the campfire and bring up the pause menu. And we do this by having both like pause and interact bound to the same key. So now we're sitting down while the cutscene is playing, and I will menu blindly through the menu and skip this cutscene. Then hopefully, yeah, I get the quick travel menu up. So now we're initiating a quick travel while the cutscene is playing. So the result for now will be nothing pretty much. It will just, like, I will die in the cutscene, or in the scripted event, I guess. And I will still be here at the campfire, where I can spend 4 of my well-earned skill points to get some very nice skills, mainly being able to craft explosives and being more durable. But if I stand up now, I will actually get that quick travel back to where we were at the Geothermal Valley, which means I don't have to again backtrack out of the backtrack, so I don't have to do the entire diving sequence that I skipped in the first place, which is very nice. There is a way to also bypass it the other way that doesn't involve the same clip, but now we're here again with having the statue thing completed. However, Jonah hasn't loaded in, so that part of the story progression hasn't been completed yet, so we just have to go back to the exit of the plotted archives and just hit the loading trigger there. So that's why we go back down this way again, but as soon as we're like on top of this wall, go back, you can see I get experience points. There is a way to go back here that involves jumping off this tree that I will try. So usually you're supposed to slide down, but with some well-timed climbing axe jumps, you can still scale the tree. And now we'll just make our way back to the campfire, and then magically Jonah will be waiting for us. Jonah is like the one recurring character apart from Lara in all of the reboot games. He's like was originally part of our crew in the first game. He's like the chef of the ship, so he was in charge of food supplies, and that went very well. But in every reboot game he looks completely different, so I'm not sure what they were going for with him. But he's equally as cringe in every single one of them. But I don't think you get to hear his catchphrase in this game, so that's at least one plus.
Very nice.
Yeah, he refers to Lara in some weird way that is not very natural.
We're not gonna say what it is.
Yeah, so now we're kind of back where we... So this is the crate we got the Broadhead arrows out of, so we are back here. And now we... Basically, Jonah got captured, which we apparently care about, so we have to uncapture him.
Classic Jonah.
Of course. Yeah, so we have to actually do a pretty long out of bounds in the next part. So this part is just like small intermezzo, basically. But at the start of the next level, we initiate the longest out of bounds, probably, or the biggest. Yeah, pretty much the longest out of bounds. Which has the typical downside of they're not... Well, actually, there is a checkpoint you will pretty much always get, but that checkpoint is inbound, so If you fail it, you go way, way back. It's not like super difficult, but the issue is mainly there are a lot of death planes, especially towards the end of the road, the out of bounds. And the weird thing is, like, death planes work if you like jump downwards through them, but not if you traverse upwards or if you like traverse through them while grounded some weird stuff. So if everything goes well, you will not notice the death plane, obviously. But if I just suddenly die, then you know I messed up, basically.
Ich hätte nie an dir zweifeln dürfen.
Yeah, so some more flashbacks, and Lara's thinking about Jonah, and now she hopefully helps me clipping out of here. So again, we use weapon toggling here to somewhat clip to the top of the cave here, but we're not quite free to move yet. So we want to get through this crack, but you can tell the camera is somewhat weird. But once we drop down from a ledge here, it should resync. Yeah, there we go. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is that the same
It
as
is
the other
same
game?
thing, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of the body of Lara clips up, but the camera stays below, and then there needs to be space for them to merge again before you can play normally.
Yeah.
Yes, this looks
Exactly.
very normal. Yeah.
By playing normally, yeah. You can tell there's a lot of foliage in these areas, and it will not change. Like, most of the times, I don't know where I'm going. Like, it's really, really annoying, but this is one of the things you just have to practice and get used to, like, make quick decisions where to go and kind of recognizing where you are despite not seeing a whole lot. Here I'm just trying to hit certain loading triggers. Down here, for example, by jumping across and then back. Again, I'm using like the climbing axes because they allow you to basically not slide down some steeper slopes. And some jumps you can only make with the climbing axe jump because it also kind of like pushes Lara upwards a bit, since she's like in this weird pose where she like reaches backwards and pulls up her legs, so you can kind of get a bit more height. Yeah, not like that though. This is an example where you actually definitely need the climbing axes, otherwise you couldn't make it up here. Here I want to curve around this tree while landing on top of the roof but not falling back down. Like any time I would be back inbounds here, I would have to reload basically to the start of the skip where I was in the cave. And this is like the final descent where there are a lot of death planes, which is why we'll stop jump rolling at some point here. There is a way to like maintain your jump rolls basically the entire way, but I'm not gonna risk that right now. It's like saves a few seconds. Instead we'll try to maintain contact with the ground. Here it's fine, but then at the end here, if I would jump right now, I would instantly die, but now I'm free to. It makes sense. This is another thing you just have to get used to, where you're allowed to go and where not. I want to jump on top of this roof, again with grappling axe jumps, to make it across. And then here I will clip back inbounds, and this will trigger the aptly named terrible fight. As you might expect at this point, we're severely under-equipped. All we have are our arrows, our pistol, and as I mentioned earlier, I got the skill to craft explosives from canisters. Luckily there is one here. And we need cloth for that as well, which is we luckily got earlier. I'm not sure if I got 3 of them. Okay, got 3, which is fine. There's another explosive here we can use, and that should take care of the other 3 guys. Like that, yeah. So that went pretty well. Like, I would take that in an attempt any day. And this is a thing that can completely derail just from, like, if you miss the first headshot or if you alert them in the wrong way, it can completely derail, and it's sometimes like unsalvageable. But yeah, that went pretty well. So now we rescued Jonah, but he's kind of dead. But luckily, as it turns out, as I also mentioned earlier, Jacob is like basically Jesus, so he brings Jonah back from the dead, which might or might not be a good thing. But with that, like, yeah, he's dead, but then he isn't, as it turns out. We're now back in the Geothermal Valley, but not for long. You're supposed to, probably the most memorable puzzle people remember about this game, there's like this big, like, astronomical construction in the lower part of this level, but we're gonna skip that a bit.
You forgot to turn off the texture viewer.
Oops. Yeah, so that was a pretty weird thing. Like, you could maybe tell there was a melee slide involved. We immediately clipped out of bounds. The main issue with that, or the main challenge with that skip, is you have to hit the loading trigger for the next part, but still stay out of bounds mid-jump. So if you slide too far left, you clip back inbounds. If you're too far right, you don't like land on top of the collision. That allows you to stay out of bounds. And then now we bypass stuff. And oops. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! 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 Oh yeah. Okay, we do it again. Actually, no. Wait, I need to load a save file. Never mind. Yeah. So this is another case where you unavoidably trigger a checkpoint that will now place you in bounds. There is a way to salvage it from here, but I haven't done it in forever. So let's pretend I will reload checkpoint and it will give me the correct save.
Yeah, it shows you how finicky a lot of the out of bounds areas are, where it's just one bad step and Lara's gonna slide back in bounds again and completely messing up the run.
This should be it. Yeah, so now we're back again at the start, so you maybe this time have a bit more awareness to tell you what I'm doing. So I'll clip back out of bounds behind the box, and then do a melee slide, and mid-melee slide I will try to get that mid-air jump to hit the loading trigger, but not clip back in bounds. Out of bounds clip, line up the jump, because once you're in the sliding animation you can't change directions. Then slightly veer to the left, but still land on top of that collision. Now some more parts will be loaded in. That's like, if you reload from main menu or reload checkpoint, this rock will be here, but maybe you remember that earlier it wasn't here, it was just nothing. Yeah, so, and you can see in the lower right, maybe now there's a checkpoint symbol here, which is the checkpoint we would get. It would place us back inbounds. And then go here. Hopefully not mess up this time. Almost like it's better to not go in the wrong parts. And here I will quickly go into the pause menu, so the game has enough time to load the other side of this gap, which also allows us to bypass the walkie-talkie part where Lara would talk with Sophia, I think, who's the daughter of Jacob, who's the prophet, who is Jesus, Lord. So now we're making our way basically towards the end of the game, and we're infiltrating this ancient castle full of these Byzantine guys who guard the source of immortality. And what we want to do here is, again, hit the checkpoint from out of bounds. And hopefully not die, so I didn't hit the checkpoint. Yeah, this is a very finicky jump. The issue is if you're too far left, you die. If you're too far right, or if you turn too early, you don't hit the checkpoint. Okay, no idea how it didn't hit the checkpoint there. You can also tell that I got it if I get XP. Because you not only load the next part, why am I not getting the checkpoint? You not only get XP, you also get the grappling hook. There we go.
Nice.
Thank you.
That again looks way harder than it might be.
Okay, sorry. I have some weird reactions time-wise. Here we want to clip again to the top of whatever is behind us, but as you can tell, visibility is low. At some point we might pop up on top, or we might not. Right now it looks like we won't, so maybe if I can slide back down again without falling all the way down. Where is Lara? Okay, yes, no, yes, yes, okay. What are you doing? Yes, yes, turn, and now up, up. Yes, okay, obviously.
Nice.
I didn't know that you also had voice recognition.
Yes.
Controls like the previous run.
Goody Goes Run was so inspiring, I enabled it. Yeah, so that skipped having to shimmy along, like, or kind of a stealth part where the Deathless, which are these like ancient guys trying to guard the source, would like try to find you. Oops. I'm trying to do another melee slide here, which would allow me to... There we go. Jump to this platform. And here I want to clip out of bounds again. This can also take a few tries. Yeah, because if that happens, you just like get stuck. So you can see it again. I did it again, obviously. Yeah, this is how you do it. Exactly. And this guy exists or doesn't exist. At least he doesn't care, so that's good. Yeah, we're severely out of bounds again, but we need to make our way higher up, as you will soon see. And to do that, we do a pretty weird thing here, where we take out our bow and then slowly rotate to the left, and somehow that also allows us to use the slope behind us to clip upwards. And now we're like very high up on a bridge we're not supposed to be. And as it turns out, the melee slide also has like no fall damage when you're in that state. So the old strat would be to just drop all the way down here, but the not so old strat is to do a mid-air jump here to land on this slope, which then in turn allows you to hopefully stay out of bounds. Yeah. Otherwise you would just go to the right there and clip through some gate stuff. And yeah. Now if I'm really unlucky, the game might soft lock me now on this climbing part here. Not like that would ever happen. See, I told you. Yeah, it just like teleports you into the void and nothing happens. It's very fun. And nobody knows really why it happens, but clearly it doesn't happen. And yeah, here's the grappling hook that I got earlier. It is required to get to the end of the game, but we will also use it for a glitch somewhat soon. So basically, the grappling hook allows you to airwalk, and you initiate an airwalk by throwing your grappling hook on a ledge that it wants to attach itself to, and landing at the same time as it would attach itself to the ledge. Yeah, obviously we can only do that with the grappling hook, and since we get the grappling hooks super late in this game, that's like there's only one real spot where that's useful in this category. Interestingly, in the next game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, they decided to give you the grappling hook like 20% into the game, so the any percent run of Shadow of the Tomb Raider is like 10 airwalks. Basically, just get an airwalk and skip everything. The issue with the airwalk is it's pretty much frame perfect, and that's not very fun with a game that's capped at 100 FPS. So that is why airwalks can take a while to get if you're unlucky or your timing isn't right.
Why do we cap at 100 FPS in
So
this game?
for this game, the 100 FPS, from what I can gather, is like a community decision. Basically, every skip works, but you also didn't need to have a Uber PC back in the day. Similarly, like for Shadow, I think it's the same, because at 60 FPS things work and you can actually play the game on most somewhat modern PCs. Like Tomb Raider 2013 at this point is so old, there is no enforced frame cap, but you still want to cap it at certain frame rates, because if you go too high with the frame rate, then some clips don't work. If you're too low with the frame rate, for example, skywalking stops to work correctly. So it's kind of, you need to find a balance, and as you can tell, for every game it's different. Here I'm just trying to get to the next campfire, and this next part is actually the most dangerous one, because there is a death plane here that I don't want to show off, so I want to get over this ledge, please.
Come on.
Thank you. Yeah, so if I would have hit that, I would have gone back to the start of the zip line where I went down. But once we're at the campfire, it acts as a checkpoint, so I'm good now. And I'm making my way to that aforementioned airwalk. Using the broadhead arrows, using the grappling hook. And on top of this structure here, I will angle myself at a certain position, because that's like the setup works best for me. Then at a specific timing during Lara's jumping animation, I'll try to use the grappling hook. That should work. Yes, okay.
Nice.
Never in doubt. Yeah, so now I'm in an airwalk state. And by rolling or sprinting, you can maintain your height pretty much indefinitely, which is good. But you can't change your height just like that. For that we use geometry, as you do in a few games when you're airwalking, so I heard. Luckily, we have some pretty adequate geometry around us here. And our goal, we will hopefully soon see, is actually behind us, but way further up than what we're at right now. So luckily there's this big mountain here that we can use to gain height. As you can see, weapon toggling again accelerates or pushes us further up. But we're not even close to where we want to be regarding our height. This part usually slows you down a bit. I want to get to the left. Thank you. Okay, now I can run up. Yeah, so to the right of this big dome there is a bridge we want to land on. Can't see it right now. So once I'm here I should be fine. So now I'm just rolling, even though you can't see Lara. Rolling, you can somewhat see some textures going out to the right there. That's where we want to clip back inbounds. There is a campfire conveniently placed there that allows us to load the final part of the level, which will be a small climbing segment. Luckily that's the only part where really climbing is involved in this game, because in the reboot games climbing is a challenge, let's say, sometimes. And yeah, once we are done with that climbing part we will be at the final boss fight, and the final boss fight has multiple phases to it. It starts out with like the boss being in a helicopter and sending out his goons after us basically for multiple waves. Once we shoot down the helicopter with explosive arrows that are conveniently placed throughout the arena, we will have a more close quarter combat type of fight. Let's see how this part goes. Suspicious. Very suspicious. Whatever, I'll take it. So yeah, this is the final fight with Constantine and some of his goons and some of the Deathless. They all want Lara dead. And it's a very fun end to the run, especially when you're doing attempts. So the gimmick is Sophia, so our ally, is shooting these fireballs with her catapult. You're supposed to only be able to shoot them after like the first one misses, because then it will like slow down time. But if you know that where and when it's coming, you can already shoot it on the first go. And there is a somewhat unlimited supply of explosive arrows behind us. As long as we don't really look at it and we time our pickups, we can get as many explosive arrows from it as we kind of want. So now we just wait until we get rid of all the enemies, which is the first phase of this fight.
Yeah, you can see Caddy getting the arrows in the top right corner of the screen.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes they run out if you like have your camera angled incorrectly, but yeah, now that's the first fight. First phase. The second phase is just against the helicopter, but we're not really going up against it. I will checkpoint reload for a slightly more consistency, but there are still two outcomes. One is good, one is bad, so we'll see what it is. We're basically just stalling for time until we get another fireball. And so the good outcome would be if he wouldn't cross over now. Good, so he will stay on the far side. We just wait out his attack and then call for the fireball to be thrown. And we can shoot it once it's close. And reload checkpoint as soon as I get the icon in the lower right. And then the third phase is basically the same as the first one, more enemies.
You know, Sophia wasn't so bad. She could just hit the helicopter, the fireball.
So the thing with the enemy spawns here is they are somewhat consistent, but also not really. Like, it super depends on when you kill which enemy and like whether they're just damaged or not. I also kind of want to carry as many explosive arrows into the next fight as possible, and by as many I mean 2, because 2 is the cap. So the next phase is against the helicopter again, but we're at much bigger danger now because there are way fewer obstacles to hide behind. Again, I will checkpoint reload here. It takes 5 explosive arrow hits to...
Read a quick donation.
Sure, yeah. Just 5 explosive arrows, there we go.
Okay, we got $2.69 from Zet, who says, "Surprise, I actually caught the end of your run in the audience."
I can't see you, but hello. Okay, thank you, Zed. That's the helicopter part. So now we're inside this building. First, we have to get rid of... oh, I thought I had 2 explosive arrows. That's a shame. Yeah, you want to also have 2 explosive arrows here. You also want to hit the enemies usually. That's not good. Luckily, I still have some heals left. So there are these like platforms with Greek fire here that we can use to one-shot enemies, but we need to lure them over first. Unluckily, there's 1 ranged guy and 1 melee guy left. Oh, and I don't have any bullets. That's also a problem. This is fine, trust me. And yes, this is all. Yeah, I love this. Very cool. Okay. Can I? I don't want the can. Thank you. Don't need emergency food right now. So, what I do want is to lure these guys over here. Well, that's one of them. The other guy is taking the not so favorable route, but he still died. Okay. So that's these guys, and now it's the final fight against Constantine, who is merciful enough to knock us out, but only take the weapon and lets us escape. So we are completely disarmed now. You're supposed to have the ability to craft like explosives out of like cans, which we don't. We skipped that earlier in the Gulag, so we need to use backstabs to kill him. Luckily, it only takes 2 backstabs. But we need to turn him around with another can here, and sometimes he doesn't turn around. Hopefully that was timed correctly. Please look the other way. Okay. So that was Constantine-ish. As all good games tend to have, there's a QTE at the end. And that's Constantine. Not quite yet, we still have to shoot him one final time, but that's after this cutscene. And then it's just like us getting to the final room, so time is in like 15 seconds maybe. So checkpoint reload here is also faster than waiting out his death and the dramatic post-mortem. And yeah, once I'm through that gate up there, it's time. That would be soon-ish right now. Ooh, yes. Time.
Deine Männer sind besiegt. Dein Bruder ist tot.
Yeah, that's Rise of the Tomb Raider. Actually, it's a pretty fun run if you don't grind it, and I made the wrong decision. But yeah, Reboot Tomb Raider is very different from the classic ones, both casually and speedrunning wise. They're like, it takes some time to get used to them, especially like learning Skywalks, but if you get them down, they're actually really fun games. But yeah, that's this game, and that's it from me for this marathon. Thank you very much for my co-commentators for making this less of a painful run to go through.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And enjoy the rest of the marathon. Goodbye.
Gemeinsam. Der Preis ist zu hoch, Anna.